Hello, everyone. This is the Humanitarian Assistance Team of Good People International. Welcome to everyone to this training. Have you heard safeguarding before? Some of you may have heard it before, some of you may not. It's a key word in the international development. Today, we're going to learn about safeguarding together. The table of contents for this training is as follows. First, we'll share the importance and meaning of safeguarding. And we'll share the good people safeguarding. First, let's talk about the importance of safeguarding and why it's necessary. In any field, there can be a power imbalance between those who provide services and those who receive them, which can lead to abuse and misuse of power. It is in this context that the need for safeguarding arises. Let's take a closer look at the need for safeguarding through examples. First case is a refugee camp in a conflict country in West Africa. There was a horrific case where humanitarian aid workers and peacekeepers in the camp sexually assaulted girls and forced them into prostitution. As many as 40 agencies and 8 units were involved in the case, which sent shockwaves through the international community. Most recently, the sex trafficking of INGO employees during the 2011 Haiti earthquake relief effort was reported 7 years later in 2018. And it too shook the international development and humanitarian aid community. These issues have highlighted the importance of safeguarding in the field of international development. The examples we've seen so far aren't about things that happen far away. Things that have nothing to do with us. They're things that could happen to us, and probably already are happening around us. We need to be sensitive to these situations and take appropriate measures to prevent them. So far, we've learned the need for safeguarding. Second, let's look at what is the meaning of safeguarding. Have you heard of the principle of do no harm? It's the principle of not causing any harm to anyone, including vulnerable populations, in all stages of organizational operation and project execution. It is a fundamental principle and commitment for civil society in the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's share the meaning of safeguarding. Safeguard means to protect against any harm or damage. In this context, safeguarding refers to any responsibility at the institutional level to ensure that the people involved in a project are not harmed. More specifically, it refers to the introduction of institutional arrangements and mechanisms to protect the people involved in the project, especially vulnerable children, women, and people with disabilities, from all risks of harm and abuse, and to protect them in the event of situations that threaten their safety. The purpose of safeguarding is divided into prevention and response. This is about preventing people from being harmed by violence, abuse, and exploitation, and responding quickly and responsibly to harm that has already occurred. Institutional mechanisms and training at the institutional level are essential for this. At Good People, we provide training on safeguarding to staffs at our headquarters and overseas branches. And we have reliable reporting systems and mechanisms in place in the event of an incident. So far, we've learned the necessity and meaning of safeguarding. Complying with safeguarding is not some big matter. It starts with recognizing these threats to violence, abuse, and safety. Every small change in our awareness is a step towards practicing safeguarding. The following is an introduction to the safeguarding of Good People International. The Good People safeguarding are organized into Chapter 1, General Provisions, and Chapter 2, Operations. Chapter 1 is consisting of purpose, principles, and definition. Chapter 2 is consisting of scope and target audience, code of conduct, roles and responsibilities. Awareness and prevention, safeguarding in media and digital communications, reporting and response, and compliance check. Familiar and unfamiliar safeguarding. Let's take a closer look at the Good People safeguarding. The purpose of Good People safeguarding is to prevent and protect vulnerable population from exploitation, abuse, and other harm by staffs and stakeholders, and responding promptly and appropriately to any harm that has occurred. In everything we do, we must comply with these following 5 basic principles. First, respect for the vulnerable populations as equal subjects of human rights. regardless of gender, age, disability, race, etc. Second, under the do no harm principle, we have to ensure no harm is caused to vulnerable populations in all aspects of our project. Third, we have to recognize that abuse of power, exploitation, and abuse against vulnerable populations constitute human rights violations rooted in power imbalances. Fourth, guarantee rights and support for victims throughout the process of responding to safeguarding breaches. Fifth, we have to share information related to victims only with essential personnel and strictly maintain confidentiality. The Good People Safeguarding applies to all Good People staffs, for all activities conducted independently or in collaboration with stakeholders. First, promote the safety, dignity, and rights of vulnerable populations and avoid exposing them to additional risks. Second, ensure equitable access to humanitarian assistance based on vulnerable populations' needs and without discrimination. Third, help vulnerable populations recover from the mental and psychological effects of threats of violence, actual violence, coercion, and deliberate exploitation. Fourth, assist vulnerable populations in asserting their rights. Good People will create an organizational culture, provide training, and ensure that appropriate personnel are in place to effectively implement this operating guideline. Good People will also establish a systematic process for reporting and responding to violations. To implement this, the safeguarding manager is the head of the department in charge. And in the case of overseas branches, the head of branches is the safeguarding manager. In particular, it is important to raise awareness and prevent vulnerable people from being at risk of harm. We have to conduct criminal background checks for this when hiring staffs and do not hire anyone with a known criminal record. In addition, all staffs are required to complete safeguarding training and familiarize themselves with the guidelines. When signing a contract, they must confirm that they have read the guidelines and signed a compliance pledge. To comply with safeguarding in media communications, you must respect the dignity and rights of vulnerable people first and foremost. When taking photographs or video of them or using their personal information for communications, fundraising, or marketing purposes, you must also obtain their portrait and copyright agreement before taking photographs, video, or other material to use. This is the form of portrait and copyright agreement. This is the form of safeguarding compliance pledge. The following is about reporting and response. When staffs and stakeholders become aware of or witness an incident or suspected incident of violation, they report the incident, either orally or in writing, to the appropriate department head. The department head will conduct an investigation and report the results in writing to the decision maker. As mentioned earlier, for overseas branches, the head of branches manages the safeguarding. They will conduct an investigation and report their findings in writing to the headquarters manager. They will also immediately separate and protect the victim from harm. If the allegation is admitted by staffs, the level of discipline will be determined and punished in accordance with GPI policy. The head of the department in charge conducts regular monitoring to ensure that this guideline is faithfully implemented. In the course of organizational operations and project processes, this is the form of report on safeguarding violations. We hope that this safeguarding will be put into practice by Good People staffs to create a safe organizational culture. Let us finish our safeguarding training. Thank you so much.